Thank you, everybody, and welcome to Module 2 of what has now been declared as an incident, a cyber incident, at siberX Transit Systems. My name is Ali, and I will continue to be your moderator and chair for the remainder of the next 3 to 4 modules, rather 3 modules, and then, of course, the lessons learned. For those of you that are just joining us, both in person and online, thank you so much for being here. A quick recap will be provided very shortly, and I will turn it over to my co-chair, Alex, to provide a recap of where we're at before we move ahead. But just as a very, very quick reminder, everyone is currently participating in a fictitious scenario. To my right, I have an industry expert now joining us from Darktrace. We have Rob, who is going to be assisting us based on where we're at. And then to my left and my right, we have a number of advisors who are playing different roles. For your interest, I'll just read out their names and tell you what their roles will be. Danush will be our cyber threat analyst. Shilpa will be stepping in for Chris as a law enforcement rep. Shaquille is our public safety coordinator, and he has a lot on his plate coming his way. And he'll probably be collaborating very closely with Jussie, who has just stepped in as well as the response coordinator. Vivek remains his vivacious, angry self as the board member, close to retirement, but he's back to fire away at the SOC that is still here. We have Alex as our chaos engineer. You have myself. You have Shrey leading up the SOC. We have James, who's going to be our data integrity lead. And I think there were a lot of questions that were asked in the previous session that might come up here as well. So hopefully you were paying attention. And we have Edgard, who is our deepfake content analyst, a new role that we have brought in as an advisor into this scenario, given the kind of images that we saw circulating on socials. And then, of course, Rob from Darktrace. With that, very quickly, welcome to the Module 2 on containment. If you don't contain the impact will contain you. And we're at that moment right now. Alex, if I can ask you to unmute and very briefly, just give an update to folks on where are we at right now and what's going on.
Thank you, Ali. So in Module 1 is detection analysis. So in any incident, we need to know that something's happening and trying to understand that scope. And unlike other scenarios we've dealt with, this one was pretty obvious. We had a threatening message on digital signage, on a digital PA system, and that was meant to demonstrate that that something at siberX transit system is compromised and put some fear into ridership. Now, we did struggle, right? Like, well, what is actually impacted? And we ended up having to reach out to the stations manually to validate is what we're seeing on some of the stations happening at all the stations. We did try to do some further analysis and hunting across the environment to see if there are other indicators of compromise. And so far, not really. We speculate, are the endpoints, the digital screens themselves compromised? Or is potentially our new digital backend that talks to the signs, but also talks to various other business systems and external partners? So that's what we're doing now. Now, in Module 2, which is all about containment. So this is really about weighing the impact of one containment action over another. Certainly, we need to keep the trains running. We need to keep moving people. That is our job. And making sure revenue is not impacted or reduce the impact of it. And while we're doing that, we're also going to make sure that we are communicating both internally and externally, and trying to attempt to understand further the root cause while we start trying to reduce the blast radius any further. Over to you, Ali.
Thank you very much. All I heard is containment is the art of saying no at scale. So we'll sort of see where all of this goes. I know Shrey and Alex, you have a lot of information that you'll be sharing very shortly. But at this point, I think, and I'm getting an alert from our media team that our friendly reporter at ODTN News has some more updates to share with us. So I'm going to draw your attention to the latest update from the media. Go ahead.
This is Roshan Khan with ODTN News. Continuing our coverage of the escalating siberX transit system crisis, just hours after the take-over loading alert sparked panic across Toronto, commuters brave enough to trust the city and get on the trains and buses are now facing a new wave of chaos. The STS mobile app is showing trains arriving now, while scarce working schedule screens report those same trains as delayed or cancelled. That mismatch has thrown transit traffic control into disarray. Controllers no longer know which data to trust, and the entire scheduling system is falling apart. With trains stalled and information unreliable, thousands are scrambling for alternatives. Uber and rideshare prices have surged to nearly 10 times their usual rates, leading to fights breaking out at pickup zones as desperate commuters try to get to work. Police have been deployed to multiple hotspots to manage disturbances. The impact on the roads is immediate and severe. With so many people abandoning the transit system, highways and downtown routes have collapsed into gridlock. Intersections across the city are backed up, emergency vehicles are struggling to move, and officers are now directing traffic in several overwhelmed corridors. Critical services are feeling the strain. Hospitals report delayed nursing shifts and overloaded departments. Schools and universities have missed exams and classes. Businesses from logistic hubs to retail centers are facing major staffing shortages as the morning rush becomes a standstill. And online, the confusion is only growing. False updates, fabricated warnings, and misleading insider info are circulating widely, adding another layer of uncertainty to an already volatile situation. Toronto is now fighting a transportation system in freefall with no clear timeline for stabilization. I'm Roshan Khan. ODTN News will continue following this developing crisis as it unfolds.
Just see if I can bring you into this conversation right now. I mean, if you don't detect the moment of all of these things that are happening, you'll definitely detect the fallout. We're seeing a massive amount of events and unpleasant activities happening at a variety of different stations. You have come in as our response coordinator alongside Shakil, who's our public safety coordinator. Any perspective on, as a response coordinator, what do we need to be doing next?
I think we need to be first, thinking about the safety of the public, employees, and making sure that we're communicating to them in a right manner. As a response coordinator, I think one of the things we need to do is activate our BCP. We know that our existing communication channels have been compromised. That's really not the way for us to communicate with public or our employees. It's actually activating what our BCP plan communication processes and working with the team to start that process immediately. And we're looking into that right now. I'll be reaching out to Shakil and trying to coordinate that with him immediately.
Thank you very much. If I can just take a moment before Shakil, I come to you, is for those that are watching online, you'll see that courtesy of one of our sponsors, Immersive Labs, we've shared the code to an environment where you can practice this particular scenario as well. For those that are here in person, if you reach out to the siberX AV team during the breaks, they will also give you that code. What's interesting that I'm seeing right now also online is the reactions that folks have had even to the video. And one of the notes is, and this is an interesting one and definitely puts Roshan on the spot, saying the traffic seems fine behind Roshan. Maybe this is a deep fake news broadcast. But I will also add that somebody did come to your rescue, Roshan, saying, actually, Roshan means light illuminator or a beacon. So let's not cast her with the deep fake news element. But Edgar, that might be something for you to analyze. Anyways, back to the scenario. Shakil, based on what Jussie just said, anything that you want to add before we turn it over for some words from Rob and then onwards to the SOC?
Sure, thank you very much. So first thing first, we have already seen that police have been deployed as well. Like we are getting support from the local authorities as well. And we are deploying our own resources as well to manage the situation. Yes, it is creating a lot of chaos and discomfort for the public, and we are trying to address it. As part of the BCP, this was part of the BCP only, like activating employing the local agencies and getting support from them. We are also trying to ramp up our own resources as well so that we can provide assistance to the people who need accessibility. That is obviously priority as well. So we are doing things, but obviously not at the pace we anticipated.
Thank you very much. I will come back to you with more questions and concerns. Rob, there's a question for you and also for James. James, I'll start off with you and bring this question to your attention. And SOC team, you can signal to me when you're ready with your updates. James, this question, and since you stepped into the role of data integrity lead, the question is, I'll read it verbatim. If data integrity, not downtime, is what truly collapses a city, what future-focused question must leaders ask to ensure their systems don't just recover functionality, but recover itself? And I would extend that, given the next modules on recovery, I would just add, from a containment perspective, how would you respond to this question?
I think where it really comes down to is the understanding of having a fulsome view of your data, and I think really what that comes back to is that with that data, that you're maintaining a fulsome view, not just of where it exists right now, what systems it's integrating with, but also the logging of that. And so I think that's absolutely critical. I think that always allows you to paint a picture to build back stronger and better. So I think that's initially where I would stand there.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, James. Rob, if I can turn to you, you've just stepped into this scenario. Thank you, Darktrace, for your support. Based on what you've heard so far, we're going to be going to the SOC team very shortly. Are there any specific things or logs you would like to see in this scenario?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to see any specific logs you might have on. I think Alex, that you mentioned. We have the endpoint logs, or at least maybe even the back-end systems that communicate to the endpoints and the screens. Can't never underestimate the server logs as well, but also any sort of traffic privileged access that we might have seen. We may want to look at the logs of anything that's been updated or changed. So definitely the more analysis or logs that we can investigate, the better for us.
Fair enough. Shreya, I believe that on your side, you are pretty much ready to go. Before I go to you, public safety team, that's Shakil and Jassi, I will let you know, we've had a few questions. I think George online is asking around miscommunications and public broadcasts that we need to be issuing. So please keep that in mind. No messaging has gone out to the public yet. But with that said, thank you, Darktrace, again for your involvement there. Captain Shrey, this is the moment that I think a lot of us have been waiting for. I will unmute and turn it over to you, buddy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ali. What you're seeing on screen right now is a snapshot from the STS operations log. We're looking at an operations dashboard at the moment. At first glance, most of these entries, they look normal. The trains are reported on time, departures confirmed, system status are green. But as we scan down a little bit more and more, there are subtle irregularities which we'll start looking at right here at this point. Now, SOC team is working with operations team and collecting these logs, making sure that we are able to have a broader picture in head. But the trains over here listed as being at Eglinton, yet its GPS places it's several hundred meters away. Another train is departing Bloor Young, even though the operator reports no such movement. At St. George, once again, the internal system flags a delay, while public announcement feeds insist everything is running on time. None of these dramatic failures, obviously, but together they signal that there are two different realities which are being emerged at the moment. Things are not adding up, so I asked my team personally to put together another visual which keeps things much in check, which looks like this at the moment. The discrepancy, the telemetries and all of that. This is a linear map of the northbound transit line. It shows differences between actual telemetry and what the PA system is telling the public. We had warning signs, we had warning signals and all of them, but here's the proof that now the information is becoming misinformation in a way. The train you see highlighted is physically south of Lawrence.
Wait, Shrey, I need to understand this. Can you say that line again?
Which ones? I spoke many lines.
The one 5 seconds ago where you said that this is delivering misinformation as well? Let me put you on the spot. Are you telling me your logs are tampered after telling me previously that your IT and OT systems are completely segregated?
Well, there are two ways to look at it. One is log tampering, where something is saved and then being manipulated. Another is things which is being received by this unified system itself is tampered with. So technically, the IT systems internally, they are not being tampered, but what it is being listening to, that's just not real. It's not actual. You can see on screen right now. The telemetry data suggests it is 350 meters south of Lawrence, right over here. Whereas on the other hand, the opposite sides of the PA system feed, it says it is at Shepherd Young. Now 350 meters, I know it's not much of a difference, but imagine this on a volume scale. That is giving me wrong signs at the moment.
Vivek, can I bring you into this situation? I'll channel my anger through you. You were brought onto this board because of your awareness also from a security perspective. You may know a thing or two. Are we hearing this correct? That first our systems, in terms of our announcement systems, were displaying some interesting messaging, to put it mildly. Now am I hearing that the systems and the logs are all reflecting the wrong arrival times for trains? I mean, what are you reading into this?
Ali, I think this is, now that we've declared the incident and, we're moving into a containment phase, we've done inadequate communication to the public, so that's the first thing I want to flag. But I think as we start to try to contain it, we're realizing we can't rely on our systems. We can't trust our systems themselves, our logs themselves. So we need to understand who's behind this, what's their motive, how did they get in, so that we can actually start to figure out what we shut down, what we keep up. And I think what's vital right now is clearly somebody is looking to disrupt us. Someone is looking to sow seeds of mistrust. And we see that as evidence in the communications that's going on, the scheduling mishap that's going on. We've already established reasonably high confidence someone is on the inside with the messages that we saw. So, as we start to understand and narrow down the threat actor groups and we should be looking at, how do we now separate the environments, move everything into a red zone, and start to figure out what comes into green, what do we rebuild, what do we reconfigure and validate. And I think we're going to have to bring a small army in because this team's not moving fast enough on that. I think the other point that's super important, and Jesse can take over, is the safety element is not getting enough attention. I think law enforcement is one piece of that, but I think we're a public service and we're moving people not only to work, but to healthcare treatments, healthcare workers, firefighter workers, banking workers. We need to address that. And I haven't heard enough about what we're doing to support the movement of those people through other contingency plans.
Okay, Jesse and Shaquille, I will bring you back into this, but Alex, I think you wanted to add something from what Shrey was saying, and let me be clear, Vivek, if you can mute yourself, please. Alex, you know what, I'll hold on my statement. Why don't you go ahead, buddy?
Thank you. And, I do want to reflect what Vivek called out, that really understanding goals and intent. This is still a theoretical consideration, but it does help because it helps us understand the motive, and that could lead to understanding their TTPs or techniques, tactics, and procedures. So, having an understanding of that allows us to potentially narrow down where we're looking. Now, what we've just realized is that it isn't just the signage and the PA systems that are affected, but now an application that takes all the real-time data from the control system network and then provides that data both for internal use for understanding system capacity, bottlenecks, but also communicates it externally to Google Maps, the municipality, and other consumers of that data. And now it's in question. I wouldn't call it disinformation at this point. There's a lot of opportunity for applications to fall out of sync with each other, and thus those data points can fail. But it is also a thread that we need to start pulling on. So we'll start looking at that application, how it's working, and whatnot. Now, to address, Darktrace brought up a really good question of like, well, what would be the logs that would be really relevant for us continuing to understand our scope, trying to understand root cause, and come up with a containment plan. The IT side of STS is quite robust. We've got Darktrace. It is a great tool that's helping us with a lot of visibility. The new application, which is hosted not in our data center but in the cloud, has less visibility. But that said, I did want to ask Darktrace, with the lack of logs streaming out of that environment, we do have some sensors that are picking up packet captures. What do you think we could see in that data?
Go ahead. So from those packet captures, we can definitely be able to ingest those and be able to see where any specific malicious actor is coming from. Using our machine learning and AI, we'd be able to detect where they got in, what time, what specifically they were able to access, and be able to stop the threat in real time. So what we'd be able to get back to you on the log specifically is just an indication of where we see something has been anomalous based on the information that we're seeing in the logs themselves.
One thing I would like to ask Rob, from the Darktrace perspective, is there anything extra that we can do over here from the SOC team that can potentially lead us to better and easier containment, at least a faster containment from Vivek's recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, based on what Alex mentioned, you said you were deployed, but however, not it's in terms of like on the OT side. So we would definitely want to extend our capabilities on the OT front. It seems to me like we're not getting into the endpoints, and that there's a miscommunication between IT and OT from that perspective. So from our expertise, we'd want to extend our coverage across the OT environments themselves, and be able to then secure your entire environment, both from the IT and OT perspective. And that would include deploying vSensors across your locations to be able to ensure that you're captured across all locations specific.
Rob, I appreciate that. Shrey, there's a few requests online, so there's been a lot of conversations. In 30 seconds, Shrey, based on what the audience is seeing on your screen, can you again summarize what is your understanding from the logs at this point?
Absolutely. This is not a simple display glitch that we're looking at. The takeover on all of those keywords that we saw, misinformation in a way that we are looking at. Both systems pulling from what should be the same unified communications platform. They, in fact, are diverging. They are telling us a different story. At the end of the day, we are receiving two different data points, two different variations of the same entity. And at the end of the day, things are still not clear. From a SOC perspective, I'll share more updates as we look into more session-based investigations, and I'll keep posted.
Fair enough. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Shrey.
jumping in.
Yeah,
quick.
please.
Sorry. We need to do more in parallel, folks. This feels like a serial exercise, and the log analysis may or may not yield fruit, and it's going to run in parallel. Mr. SOC, Mr. IT, can we get a list of systems impacted? And can we get your opinion on what we could shut down, disable, or disconnect if we need to? I think we can, at least with reasonable confidence, say the display systems used and the scheduling system used are potentially untrusted. So let's draw a circle around them, move them into the red zone, VLAN, and continue the hunt. Otherwise, we're never going to contain this. It's already afternoon. This has been running all day, and we haven't taken one step in containment.
Okay, thank you for that, Vivek. Dhanush, last I checked, you had the title Cyber Threat Analyst. You've been quiet. I'm not looking for somebody to blame. I'm looking for the root cause. Maybe the root cause is address, even better. Dhanush, your thoughts on what you've seen so far?
Good morning. Yeah, that's a great question. I think when it comes to containment, we need to take a prioritized approach based on ridership risk and risk to the rest of our IT infrastructure, right? So one of the main things I'd need is guidance from leadership, especially from Vivek, so that I don't get yelled at. While we get that guidance in terms of what we need to prioritize, I do have two working theories, right? So if you look at the microservices stack that initially where the PA system and all those services are essentially functioning off of, there were two things that really stuck out to me, right? So it's microservices. So that means likely containerized platforms, as I recall. We have two possible vectors there, right? So one is the possibility of an exploitation of a vulnerability within that stack, so within that code base, within the images that are used, or the second could be that it's actually a compromised code base. Thinking back to some of the previous reports that happened, in other areas where similar things were displayed in the past. We have a chance that if we are using open source libraries, there was a CI/CD pipeline drawn there, which with the repository, if it's a trusted or untrusted repository, either way, it could use open source, and it could have a compromised library. So that's an angle I think we need to investigate. The lack of visibility into that environment, lack of tools is going to be challenging, so it's got to be manual. The second thing I would say is we need to look at APIs. APIs have a point of, are known to have weaknesses if they aren't properly secured. So that's another avenue we need to investigate. And the third, just to get some extra support, we have law enforcement. We've got cybercrime teams that can support us, especially with the previous incidents that have occurred in other sectors. Can we get some support from them to identify are there any threat intelligence related to this that can be shared? What was done at that time to contain those incidents? Any of that information will help us. We're a small team. We can take all the help we need. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. Jussie, Shaquille, I need to bring your attention to this. I'll read out this question that has come up, and then I'll bring your attention to what you're seeing onto the screen. There'll be two things that actually for now, I'll point out one thing, and if AV team, if you can keep my screen on now for the duration of the next little while. A note that has been placed online says if a takeover is ongoing, attackers could have complete control. If OT takeover is done by an inside job, could be a PLC. How secure are devices containing PLCs? There's a lot of questions right now, and this risk of an insider being involved, etc. Jussie, let's start off with you. As you're seeing now also in front of you and on the screen, siberX transit systems across the board are showing train arriving now on, this looks like it's come to me from the app. It's also come to me from other sources as well. 9:25 train arriving now, 9:45 Toronto, 9:45 Brampton, 10 o'clock Pickering, this super speed train that reaches Toronto, Brampton, Pickering in 15 minutes. Can't wait for it to be built. But at the same time, it says all trains delayed. And I'm going to draw your attention to something else now as well. This was just shared with me by some of our operators on the ground. I'm going to read this out verbatim. It's a conversation between two operators within two of our shuttle trains. Are you losing contact with Central? My console is showing conflicting updates. Same here. One says hold departures, another says resume eastbound flow. Which one is real? None of the supervisors are answering calls. Is command offline? I'm out at platform 3 and we've got hundreds piling up. We need guidance now. Do we freeze movements or start rerouting? I don't know, bro, but I'm not going to lie to you. I'm scared. Would call the wife if I were you in the meantime. Jussie, not only is the public at risk right now from overcrowding and if I may dare say so, the potential of a kinetic-like attack, something physical with overcrowding, is very high. Now, if I'm reading this right, both you and Shaquille, could the trains itself and the devices on which we move people also be at risk?
There is a big possibility at this point since we don't know. And just to add to that, we know the ridership is wrong and our safety is priority for us. So I think right now what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand what is happening at the ground level. Shaquille and I are working very closely with our officers on site, and we do have, as I said, we have a back-end communication plan with some of our key stakeholders at each of the locations. We're communicating back and forth with them to make sure that they have the right set of information. Right now, we've asked everyone to hold and not to operate the trains at this stage. We're waiting to get more information from IT in terms of is the information that's being displayed is correct, or the information that the riders, the operators are getting is correct. So we need some information from our IT team to determine that, to move to the next step, because right now we're concerned with what is happening at the ground level.
Shaquille, I know our motto here is control, communicate, and conquer, but at this point it's the complete opposite. Any perspective from your side?
One thing that we need to decide on right now is whether we should be shutting down our PA systems or not, because it is creating, obviously it is giving misinformation as well, and it is creating more chaos. So we need to decide whether we should be bringing down the system, because as Vivek has already highlighted as well, it's afternoon already, and we have been just trying to hunt the source of it. So if we don't know, let's shut down the system. At least we are not creating more misinformation.
Okay, if I can ask you to mute. Edgar, we fought really hard to get monies for your fancy role to be involved with us, deep fake content analyst, but it seems like we really need your support here, my friend. A couple of questions is, we're seeing news reports, and I can tell you this, is that we're seeing news reports where people are being told all trains are down. We're seeing fake news reports go out there as well. I'm now being questioned, is that this screenshot that was sent to me, is this even real? In the midst of all of this, with your expertise in deepfake content analysis, anything you can guide us with at this point?
Yeah, thank you. Let me start by saying, and I know we talked about disinformation, and just to ensure that we're aligned.
Sure.
So misinformation is basically false, deliberately misled, or that is used to mislead or deceive, and in this case, the public. So it looks like this campaign is sort of a disinformation weaponization. So when it comes to AI, synthetic media is content created or altered by AI to look and sound real. So what you're seeing in the news and what we're seeing from this possible adversary is that they're using deep fake or clone voices to impersonate perhaps officials and to mislead. So what we're currently doing is identifying those type of sources of information. We are using different tools to analyze the data, validating by ensuring that we run it through this different content, and possibly remove it. But at the same time, sharing that information with Jessie so she can coordinate and use that information so she can work with the different teams, such as the public safety with Shaquille and the National Public Alert System. And I think this is important to communicate to the public, just like when you get the alerts on your phone, that this is coming from a trusted source. But in the meantime, what we're doing is validating. Our defense is basically to authenticate every official message that we're seeing on the internet with digital signatures and watermarks, just to ensure that the public is safe. But this is complex, but we're still going and reviewing the information.
Okay, yes, Jesse, go ahead, and then I have to go to Shilpa because we need law enforcement to chime in. Go ahead.
That's exactly what my point was, that we're going to be working very closely with Legal Next to draft an announcement that needs to be publicly available for users to know what is happening, what we're doing, and what the next steps are as well.
Thank you. Shilpa, law enforcement, our dear friends, please.
I think at this point, we're already integrated into the incident command structure, and we've been working behind the scenes with, obviously, Jesse and Shaquille to take care of some of the actions. priorities from a law enforcement perspective right now are to protect, obviously public safety, but then also preserve evidence. I think that's really, really important. The other focus is to de-escalate and not have any further escalation, and then start supporting them in the lawful containment activities that they could take, and then start coordinating on investigative readiness. I think Shakil mentioned some time back that a suggestion that maybe we should start figuring out. One of the requests from somebody here was, have we figured out what systems can we isolate, right? Whether it's the PA system. I think we're seeing some real-time train tracking issues as well. Have we thought about isolating some of these systems? If we do, as a law enforcement representative working with Jesse and Shakil, I want to look at and support them. What are the risks that are going to increase due to these containment activities? Are we going to see a lot of platform crowding, stampedes, if we take some of these systems offline? So that's where I would be working with them to make sure we have the correct officers deployed, along with some of the legal and compliance activities that are needed. And then at what point do we start determining, I think I need a little bit more information from the incident command team here to guide me, to support them, to tell them this is now a threshold for a criminal investigation. I think that support is available, but I'm looking for more guidance on to see if they have been able to see unauthorized access, system manipulation. We've already seen false emergency messages. I think that things are piling up. We may be able to, start a criminal investigation, but there's a lot of guidance available here from a law enforcement perspective. So we are ready with that. And then if they've seen anything with respect to an insider threat or not, I think we should start exploring these angles now, so that we start getting ready to obviously protect the organization legally, but also provide them the support from an overall public safety and law enforcement perspective. That would be my guidance here.
All right, Vivek, please chime in.
Reached out across sector to understand if anyone else is impacted and what they're seeing and what they're doing. So we should be already have established good connections with Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, with CCTX, with the transportation sector, ISAC, and we should be asking who else is impacted, if anyone. Are they seeing the same IOCs? And understand more about this threat. It may not just be us.
Okay, thank you for that, Vivek. I need to add another note over here, which, again, courtesy ODTN.news has come to me, and why this was not flagged in the earlier conversations will remain a mystery to me. Approximately a week ago, we had another situation, Alex, where riders had reported sudden zero balances. So we had released a statement saying we were fixing this. There's, we'll get the accurate balance up, and then we restored it, and nobody raised this in the earlier module as well. Alex, this doesn't seem like a coincidence.
Well, a few weeks ago, we really just thought it was a data sync issue. So we just restored from backups. We do backup quite frequently, the member account number balances and whatnot. So we did restore that. There was a little bit of financial loss because of what we backed up versus what the reality was. But now, with seeing some of the other anomalies happening, we are digging into it deeper. Working with DevOps, we are exploring what we can do for containment. There are some recommendations. We can look at turning off some microservices. They're just warning that some microservices rely on other microservices, and we have to understand that could actually cause a cascading failure. Secondly, are we comfortable turning off our only means with the digital signs at least, communicating with our ridership? And if that doesn't work, what else will we shut down, and what do we lose every time we start shutting something down and containing it? One thing that has been brought up is, well, let's switch to manual controls. And I think that is something that we do have in our BCP. My only concern is that BCP. I'm looking at it right now, and it hasn't been updated in 6 years. This system's only been online for 6 months, so there's probably a little bit of a gap in reality versus what's written down. So do we have the staff to actually operate things in a manual state? That goes from everything from communicating at the stations with no longer having signage, no longer being able to share train schedules at a minimum, but also what we would like our ridership to do, including if there is a need, how do we communicate to evacuate and where to evacuate? So we have to make sure that we do have the staff for that. Same thing with PAs. Do we have enough people in station with megaphones to be able to effectively communicate to our ridership and maintain safety primarily of people in station?
Okay, fair enough. And to the folks that are watching online, I am seeing some conversations that are moving very swiftly towards eradication right now. Do remember is that we're trying to contain and understand the scope of this incident to determine what do we need to potentially switch to a manual override, what do we need to shut down. We're still getting to that point. Point be noted, this attacker probably is in our environment or has been there for a very long period of time, but we're trying to get to the bottom of that. We see lots of conversations online. And yes, it looks like there are multiple goals that are being discussed online as well. I see Moses, we have folks who have joined in from Colombia as well, sharing a lot of different ideas. Keep them coming. To the audience that's here as well, if you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to raise your hand, and if I can see you, I will gladly loop you into the conversation. James, from a data perspective, I think you had something to share. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we've been and rightly still been focusing on public safety, and I think that should be continue to be the focus. But as we look through these, and we're starting to see these anomalies over previous weeks, what we need to also be considering is looking back, how do we take our data and we classified it? We had this new system, as you said, for 6 months, not more than that. So hopefully we're looking back at our architecture and understanding what types of data we have and where, because we're coming back then to those requirements to be able to work with our partners, work with compliance, work with regulatory. As I'm looking at it right now, I'm looking at the municipal acts. There's also potential health acts that we're looking at. If there's any mobility on request, passenger assistance, or paratransit capacities that we do run, as well as looking at payment card industry now, I would say is all related. So we're all having to take this and use this as a support role to further the investigations, understand the scope, and also understand what's our reporting requirements as we move forward, just beyond just strictly public safety.
Thank you. Shilpa, there's a question that came to me directly, and I was hesitating to bring up this word, but I will right now. There's a lot of conversation happening online that, why is this happening? What's going on? What's the root cause? And again, I'm not prepared to right now go down that path of attribution, but questions come to me twice. I'm going to ask you, is there a case here of potential domestic kinetic terrorism that could be at play here, where someone's trying to gather people into a certain environment and cause something much more larger?
I mean, we've certainly seen that in the past, and we certainly cannot rule that out. That is why we have to figure out some of whether it's an insider threat, whether there was an unauthorized access to the system. I think we are at a stage now, if we get a little bit of more analysis, whether it's through our extended partners, Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. I think they should be coming and helping us with more threat analysis here to figure out if there is a cause for a criminal investigation. We would certainly be looking to initiate that. Like I said, we can't rule it out. People's sentiments should not be ignored. It's not like this has never happened before. This is how most of these events get triggered.
All right. On that really dangerous note, I'm going to turn it over back to the SOC team, and we can have your
quick
screen.
question.
Oh, sorry, Vivek, go ahead.
As you're going to the SOC, I just add to the questions. We need clear decision criteria that would help us decide, do we shut down the displays? I'm concerned from a public image, brand, and safety perspective. If the system's compromised and the messages are being controlled by the threat actor, what would they put up that could put our customers in harm's way? So what is the threshold at which we turn them off?
Alex, can I ask you, and I know that you've been mentioning this a few times, but Alex, I just want to bring you very quickly here before we go to Shrey. Can you remind us again, what are the impacted systems?
It's a living list. We are currently able to confirm that digital signs are impacted. And again, these are screens at stations, on trains, on buses are just generally displaying schedules and advertisements. I think that's also something we need to consider, that actually will impact our revenue if we do shut down those screens and potentially put us in a contract liability with our advertisers. Second is the PA system. Again, a system that sits at every station and takes text and will then read it out in various languages. We did see a suspicious email go to our ridership. We are investigating to see if that was spoofed or if that did come from our email systems. And now we're also hearing that the mobile app is displaying erroneous information. Now the challenge there is the app the problem, or is it the data feed that the app is relying on? As mentioned previously with our application architecture, all of these systems have one or more microservices supporting them. There are likely interdependencies that we would have to start reviewing with the DevOps teams to understand those impacts. Now, one common denominator with them all is that they use a message bus to share data in between microservices as well as to the consumers, which would be mobile devices and whatnot. So we are looking into that. As mentioned, we have a bit of limited visibility into these environments, mainly because there weren't a lot of great solutions out there to support the environment that we're working on, and the ones that were out there were too expensive and added too much complexity for our project's timeline. And the chief transformation officer said that we would do security tomorrow.
Yeah, and I can tell you that now this is escalating because finance is also starting to reach out. You know how we always used to say no systems are down until finance notices. Well, finance has started noticing, and these financial anomalies also are starting to become something that they're pointing to. There's a lot going on here. Shrey, I think you had a question for Darktrace, and then your screen is up. Please give us some more information. We have about 14 minutes to go, and I need a clear containment pathway now.
Absolutely, Ari. I'm coming with some proof right now throughout the discussion. API activities was one of the biggest point which couple of panelists have brought up. Here we are looking at the API activities throughout the STS communications platform, and this is typically where I can definitely say that story becomes unmistakable. These logs show multiple services behaving in ways they were never designed to. I would love Darktrace's perspective as well on this one, since this becomes more technical and towards focusing on the AI sides that may uncover some information which current lack of resources at the SOC team may benefit from. The SVC message sync, typically speaking, normally a very low volume synchronization service is hitting the message template almost 900 times right now, which is abnormally high. This is not routine syncs that I look at. The message test, leftover syncing accounts, even the temp admin 02, these accounts should not exist in production at all. I don't even know how they went in. This is pulling sensitive telemetries, attempting to delete the logs, pushing config changes. These are assumptions right now, but they are slowly and steadily being solidified. These APIs have been receiving status 200. We are confirming with the DevOps team and the SecDevOps as well that whether these are confirmed actions or these are still fake logs in a way or misconfigured logs in possible directions. We do see and notice cloud backup service exfiltrating large volumes of data as well under the guise of routine backups. Next steps for the SOC team is to validate whether these are via API tokens or sessions or auth sessions or admin accounts. How is it even happening? That's the direction we're taking in at the moment. At this point, the logs can confirm that the system is not malfunctioning. It is being steered into a different direction.
Yeah, Rob, your thoughts? I did say, our friends at SOC stand for snacks, orders, and chaos. So they've definitely delivered on a lot for you to snack on. Your thoughts?
Well, looking at these logs, it looks like, and judging by what the threat actor has, assuming it's a threat actor or insider threat, has taken over here with terms of digital science PA systems and potential compromise of email. Looks to me like we need to contain or at least block any suspicious activities. But my understanding, or at least looking at this, looking at the logs specifically, tends to lean me towards a potential insider threat. In which case, we need to look at how we could block or at least remove any privileged access from the different environments. Seems to me like we could, with Darktrace, we could understand where that came from, or at least which specific threat actor, which specific connection caused the additional connections to then infiltrate, and where this FTP service is, and we could definitely block that suspicious activity.
Alex?
We're still looking at the logs. Certainly there are some suspicious activities happening at the API level, and that's actually where we have some visibility, but where we don't, or where we have to pull this visibility up manually, is from API into the microservices and interacting with the message bus. So we're going to be doing that on a more manual basis. So as of right now, we're trying to understand, are there any commonalities between the services that we're seeing that are affected? And we are seeing, again, some suspicious API activities, but nothing that narrows down one user, one API key, one service account just yet.
Alex, if I can jump in.
Please.
Earlier, you gave us a long list of applications impacted, but you did not give us any recommendation on what we can shut down. I'm sure you have a list of minimum viable services that must be maintained, but we also have a vector, our displays, our PA systems, which are right now in untrusted hands. I think we've established they're not malfunctioning, but there is an intruder with access. So while you're working on that in parallel, could we have your recommendation on what systems we should isolate and shut down? Because those could just compound our problems if we don't make a decision on those quickly.
I think Jussie wants to hop on the Vivek train as well. Jussie, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to add to that, Alex. We've confirmed with legal and our partners as well that we do advertisement for. They're okay with us shutting it down, given that we're not giving the customer wrong information. So we have a confirmation on that. So if that gives us a little bit more comfort in terms of shutting down our display systems, just wanted to make sure we are able to communicate that back to the team.
Alex, I'm going to hop on this as well. There's more questions that are coming in online. And again, I'll summarize them as best as I can. And again, if anybody has anything here, please just shout it out or raise your hand. I'll summarize these questions or the conversations that are happening. And I think these are really valid in the sense that they're asking, shouldn't the OT and IT systems have been air-gapped? Is there a potential exploit towards the DMZ area that you might have had? This seems very much like signaling and track circuits and the conversation that we saw on WhatsApp. These should be separate systems, but it seems like it's not. And this attacker, an intruder, is not just controlling our PA systems, is potentially controlling others as well. Can we have some clarity that what Vivek said is perhaps half the picture and that this intruder is in other systems as well?
A couple years ago, we were really frustrated by some very old technology that kept on falling over and causing system interruptions. So we hired a transformation officer who brought in the cloud, applications, and now AI. So what that has resulted in is a very powerful next generation system that we have rolled out. It is a unified architecture. It is built on top of the cloud and really was to standardize how we standardize our data and make sure that every application has the same data, has access to the same data. Now back to the question of containment. I think we reached out to Dev and said like, hey, what things can we turn off? They said they never designed the system to turn off incremental microservices, so they're actually not sure what will happen there. But at the end of the day, we can provide technical recommendations. Of what we think we should turn off, but that's actually a business decision, not the security operations team. And I also have to push back. The SOC is saturated right now trying to, validate certain theses of what we believe is impacting, and getting us hammered by questions is really distracting us from getting any progress with, clarifying what the root cause is.
Vivek, I'll tell you one thing, pretending the SOC is not in the room here. One of the things we discussed in our board meeting is that this SOC and IT team, the only thing they patch right away are their excuses. And I'm hearing all this, we're saturated, we're this and we're that. I hear that every time. Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, you name it. So, Alex, I'll let you saturate or be even more saturated with your thoughts there. But Shaquille, I think you had something to add?
Yeah, just wanted to confirm with our IT team and others as well, yes, our PA systems have been compromised. Our displays are not providing the right information. But I was wondering, communicating with the public, we can use different channels as well. As an example, like Twitter or some other accounts that we might be having. Do we know whether those have been compromised as well? If not, maybe we can communicate with public through those accounts.
There is an internal microservice that does do all our social media automation. So that is also part of that system. So we are going to have to dig in a little bit further whether we can trust it. I think we do need to recognize that we might need to be using some of our out-of-band communication tools. In our incident response plan, I'm not sure, was it WhatsApp that was the tool of choice?
I don't know, but the one thing I can tell you is that on the Signal group that this incident team has been using, somebody just joined our Signal group, and it says unknown joined the group via the group link. So if that doesn't throw you into some stress, I don't know what else will. But Dhanush, I see you smiling. You're on the same team as Alex, so your job's on the line here too. But Shilpa, law enforcement, please come to the rescue. We have 5 minutes to go.
I think law enforcement can support here. We've provided support and said, if the SOC is really overburdened, there is Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity that can pitch in. They are available to help. There are alternative methods of communication that law enforcement can support, and they can start sending some messages from their end, right? I think we just want to know at what stage this becomes an emergency alert or something like that. I think that's where there are other modes of communication. There is a lot of help here available. One thing that we've still not been able to ascertain is why is the PA system still up and running with the wrong messages? Why haven't we taken that down? That takes away a lot of our risk that we have today with the wrong messaging that's going to the public. I think if we've not been able to figure that out, that's where the experts from other agencies can come and help and support the SOC in taking those decisions. That help is available.
Okay, very quickly, and my screen will pop up very shortly. Edgar, if I can have a quick word from you on the whole deepfakes element as well, and then I need to come down to a decision. I have someone else who will be joining us here in the war room, Nilesh, who is also saying we need to make a containment decision now. But before that, very quickly, Edgar, things like this are popping up on social. We're seeing surges, we're seeing a whole bunch of things. What do we need to put out any information right now to the public, advising them to only focus on certain channels? There's a lot of information that's going out there saying that the surge pricing has kicked in. We've contacted rideshare services. They said they've not instigated any surge pricing. What's going on here? Could this be part of the attackers' TTP as well to spread all of this information?
Yeah, a couple of things. So there could be a link with what we've seen so far in social media, and you are correct. the channel of communication has to be standardized. And so, as I mentioned before, the National Public Alert System should be one of the systems that should be used, as well working with public safety. And the traditional methods of communication, so TV, radio, as well as trusted social media entities. In addition to that, we work closely with the cyber threat intelligence team. And what we have identified so far, based on the AI-generated information, is there are specific tools that are mapped to specific adversaries. And so I'll be willing to share that information with the rest of the team, because it's not just the IOCs, but also the indicators of attack. So we're seeing a pattern on who the attribution is complex, as I mentioned, but we're seeing a pattern of who the adversary might be.
Okay, fair enough. Vivek, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I share with you the draft summary I'm taking up to the board. You guys have been busy. I'm not getting the updates I need. It appears we have not achieved containment. We're still chasing analysis. We're still chasing scenarios. No decisions, no criteria have been made. I don't know if we need to reconsider the incident commander role on this, but I think we're going to have to take some significant changes on our path, because I don't even see a path to containment at this point.
I see the incident commander there smiling in the audience. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. Danush, go ahead, and then the last words to Alex and Shrey, because your jobs are literally on the line here. So.
Yeah, I thought Vivek wouldn't yell at me, but he did indirectly. So I'd like to throw it back. I did ask for guidance on what needs to be prioritized in terms of containment. I didn't hear anything from Vivek. But that being said, I think we do have some clear indicators of what needs to be done. Starting with those APIs, there were a lot of red flags, in addition to the microservices tied to the PA system. So I think containing those, shutting those down, isolating them is the right word, would help us get to a better position of containment until we know more. So I'll leave it at that. As long as Vivek can approve that, I think we're good to go. You need to take some accountability, Vivek.
Well, I don't think, if you're going to wait for the board to tell you how to do your job, you're the wrong person in the job. I'm sorry.
Fire. Go ahead.
I need you to come forward with recommendations, decisions, and options, not excuses and waiting for the board to tell you what to do. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You're forgiven.
All right, Alex, as I stand in between these two angry young men, Alex, containment, what are we taking offline? And I can tell you one thing. I know you're saying, how much capabilities do we have to go manual with our services? We do, but then there's something called unions, and the union reps are gearing up for conversations with all of us. So keep that in mind, but the last word to you, what's our containment strategy?
The SOC does not make business decisions. We make technical advice to the business. Now, what we would advise is doing a limited containment of shutting down microservices that we believe are associated to what we're seeing on the front end. For two reasons. That is the sort of the common denominator of all these systems is the back end. I don't think going station to station, unlocking the cabinets and turning off the screens does much more than reducing some of the public concern, but is not going to address it. There may be consequences of turning this off that we don't know. We've never tested this, and there's just so much interdependencies with these applications. I'm digging through some of this documentation. Some of it was drawn on napkins, but I digress. So I would recommend, but it is the business's decision on whether we take a sledgehammer to shutting down some of those systems. Secondly, doing an inventory of API keys. Luckily, we do have a key management system, so we should have all those API keys tracked in there and tied to our identity system. So we can start looking at and trying to identify any suspicious API keys being called. Again, the system lives off of APIs, so it's sort of looking for a needle in a pile of needles, but we are going to try to do some correlation. Again, their challenge is none of this data is in a powerful SIM like Darktrace, so we are having to do the correlation manually with the old copy and paste and Control F.
Cool story. So are we basically saying we're switching to manual? We are taking down the PA systems. We are delivering some sort of public communication, whatever that is, to be drafted for the next module, and business not as usual?
That's what it sounds like, but our technical team does not manage the operations of the system. So when we turn those things off, it will feel manual, whether the team is operating manually.
Fair enough. I will bring that back for discussion in the next module. And with that, I want to thank all of you, our sponsor Darktrace, and all of my advisors for joining us for this module. We're about a minute and a half over, but that is okay. Module 3 will begin at approximately 1 p.m. For those watching online, links are being shared as well to the Immersive Labs environment where you can practice. There'll be some reports and some links from the Darktrace site that we'll share as well, and then in the next session from Trend Micro as well. With that said, we are in a very delicate situation. I want to thank you all for attending, and I'll invite you to join lunch the way siberX, the team here, would like me to invite you, and that is siberX transit systems may not know where they're going, but our volunteers surely know where you need to be going to pick up some fuel for lunch. See you in approximately 1 hour. Have a good one.